Welcome everybody to the Culture Shock Podcast. It's your boy Pat Bayless. I'm here with my two co-hosts, Steele and Moo and Taylor.
What up?
And today we got a returning guest from season 1, Stephanie in the building. What's up, Stephanie? How you doing?
What episode was you on season 1?
The relationship. It was one of the relationship episodes. We only did about
What was
two
it
of
called
them.
again?
I can't remember. See, you're
Pat?
making me look bad. I'm trying to be organized. You're making
I
me look
wasn't
bad.
on this episode. I mean, that
Nah,
season.
it wasn't. It was a bunch of
I'll
people
shut
on the
up now.
episode
I'm
though.
sorry.
But
Should've never
but Stephanie, yeah, word.
Never brought it up. Asked for
Stephanie got
nothing.
one of the highest praises though that any people we ever had. To be honest, the way she spoke and everything. So definitely had to bring it back for this one. This episode is called Uncommunicated Expectations, and I think that's very broad when we talk about that. I don't know what comes to mind for y'all when y'all think about uncommunicated expectations. I know it could be friends, family, spouse, or somebody you in a relationship with. We get that kind of all the time. We can get it from a young age. We really get it when we're young, if you think about it, and then we deal with it obviously a lot more as we're older. So I kind of want to start with Steph. What do you think about, like, what was your first experience where you had expectations that weren't met because you didn't communicate it to somebody?
I think with me in particular, like I can recall in my own relationship, I think one of my biggest things was, and something that actually I learned through going to therapy with someone, was a lot of times when it comes to explaining your feelings, a lot of times people struggle with it because they don't know how to identify it. So oftentimes I think people don't even know exactly what they're feeling. So it's hard to share that feeling without understanding what you're feeling. And I think myself, like when I look at how I was raised, it's totally in a different time. So like my parents didn't explain what feelings meant to me. So, you know, you're taught, you see people raising their children and it's like when they do something wrong, it's like you don't talk about it. You don't explain what sadness is. You don't explain what frustration is. You don't explain what fear is. I think that's a big problem. And I think that transfers into relationships, especially how people are raised. So like my biggest thing, especially in my relationship now, or something that we were learning to work through, is really understanding like, okay, what are you feeling and why can't you tell me? And I always felt like it was me. You know, like when someone's not saying something, that's saying something. So I think if you're not able to really pinpoint what that feeling is, you can't explain it. And it's hard for me to know because I can't help but to always feel like I'm doing something wrong, you know, like especially if you're quiet and your body language is telling me that something is off, I'm going to automatically assume that I did something to cause it. And I think for me, I'm so big on explaining feelings and explaining emotions that it's hard for me to not see someone reciprocate that. I think that's one of my biggest things. I don't know, for me, as far as like explaining feelings, I'm good at that. That's one of my stronger suits. I don't think I've ever struggled with like, hey, you know, that's fucked up. Like you did something that like really pissed me off. I think it's on the reciprocating side. Like when someone does something that fucks with me and like fucks with, I'm thinking like, yo, did I do something to you? Like what's your beef? So as far as me, I've always worked on that because I knew that was a problem. I think it's on the other end, like seeing how people respond to me. Even not even just in relationships, just in general. Like even at a job, same thing. You know, like with a boss. You know, when they're funky with you, you think like, oh, did I do something to you? Right. Yeah, like so not necessarily me, but like towards me. Right. That's been my biggest thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Tay?
I think myself. I think I struggled. I noticed when I was in relationships that I struggled with communicating my expectations, and then, which I think is common for most females, you kind of just expect your man to like know everything. That's kind of like the misconception about relationships. You expect, oh, I shouldn't have to tell you, you know, whatever. But that's not necessarily the case. If everybody grew up a different way, was exposed to different things, everybody looks at relationships and has a different perspective on relationships. You should be open and willing to communicate what you want, what you desire, whatever the case, what you need, your love languages. Because nobody's a mind reader. They can't, you know what I mean? I used to do that a lot. I used to be like, in a lot of my younger relationships, not that I'm that old, I'm only 23, but in a lot of my younger relationships, I would get so mad at these, like, all of these men not knowing what the fuck is wrong with me. I'm upset, and you can't tell, and now I have an attitude, and you don't know what to do, and then you're asking me what's wrong, and I'm like, nothing. And I'm supposed to expect you to just chase me and coddle me and do it. no, that's not even like, I've learned over time that's really not even realistic. So I think I absolutely have. I had yeah, there it is. There it is.
That's a Kawhi laugh.
wasn't
Go ahead,
even
go
gonna say
ahead.
that.
I think on my end, I definitely struggled with that.
Okay.
But I learned over time that you can't expect things or anything. Cause I would get tight if somebody expects things of me, and it's like you're being a hypocrite.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. Go ahead, move.
This is a pretty tough question for me because I think it starts with like time and chemistry is
Yeah.
when you start to build like
Right.
uncommunicated expectations. Because you've done this the last 7 times, I expect you to do it the next 7 times.
Right.
I didn't ask you any of those 7 times, but I still have an expectation of you
Mhm.
doing the next 7 times. So I think it's just pretty natural when you settle, when you get content, when you get that first level of comfortability, and you get flowers every month or every birthday or whatever it is, and now 2 birthdays go by and it doesn't happen.
Mm.
But
Mm.
it's never something that he said he would always do. He just always did it, or whatever the case may be. So I think that just happens naturally. I don't necessarily remember, but I know for myself, even right now, I would say in the first 2 years, I probably bought my fiance flowers like every 2 weeks. And I haven't kept that up, and she has said something about it. But to me, it's like I ain't
How
never
often
said.
were you getting
I
flowers?
spent $7,000 on
Not
flowers.
really.
Wait, how often were you
I
getting
done
flowers?
ran up a bag of them flowers.
I could literally show you the size. I also have like a florist. What is that shit called?
Florist.
There you go. I have,
Florist.
I have a florist, like like somebody I hit up, and they personalize every single thing that I've ever sent her.
Wow. Ooh.
So
Turn the volume up on him, Patrick.
I know.
Really
Word,
loud.
for
When we
real.
Really, really
have-
loud for the people in the back. Thank you.
when we even like we had picnics and I got XYZ done, I had the lady deliver it to where we were in Smithtown and things like that. So when those things don't occur 3, 4, 5 times, and we only been together 3 years, but she has said something, so I think it's that just naturally happens. And sometimes you may put your, I guess, like self on a pedestal sometimes, in the sense of like, or when you hear things like this has never happened, or
Mhm.
sometimes you're like, oh, all right, then I don't gotta really do it this much. I could do it every 3 months now.
Yeah.
But I do think that just occurs naturally, and I don't think it's a bad thing. It's always good to like, I guess, come back to the table or be humble in the sense of thinking that everything is okay and you can be more or do more. But I do think it's natural. But for me, I would say it'll be something small, like if my fiance stopped cooking, then I would be like, what the hell? Even though she never said that she would. It's just naturally she at least cooks 2
You know
meals a day.
something wrong.
So, and I know that's not like normal for like even when she said, even sometimes she cooks breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So.
All right, lower his mic again.
I'm crying.
But at the end of the day, it's not an expectation. If I
Right.
like, I'll make a smoothie or something, or even the other night, I was actually making my own tacos. She came in the kitchen, was like, "Why are you making your own food?" And I just sat down and started playing. I'm on my son's iPad. I was chilling. So I appreciate stuff like that. But I think it's just natural that
Mhm.
I think it's good to actually go like get to a space where you do have it if it's like unintentionally positive.
Right.
And I think I'm just talking about positive stuff, so I think it's easier to agree. But
Mm-hmm.
I never really experienced it in a negative way at all, because I think it's kind of hard unless it's something that's verbalized. You can kind of
Right.
put an expectation or accountability on it.
Yeah.
But if you never said anything, it's hard to be like, I'm mad at you for something that we both didn't know we
Mhm.
should be mad at or had an expectation or a rule for or a boundary
Yeah.
for. So
Well, that's a good point.
Okay.
Like, do you talk about that like on your first date? Is that first date material?
What are we talking about?
Like if you're
Expectations?
like if you're sitting and you're having dinner with someone,
Mm-hmm.
do you sit and you say like, "Hey, this is what I expect"? Is that too
And I ain't
soon?
gonna lie to you. It's gonna sound funny, but not everybody, but if I'm really interested in somebody and I get
Mhm.
their number, we already done had dinner before we went to dinner. Like, I done asked you a bunch of shit, like, cause I'm trying to learn you. So I'll ask you a whole bunch of questions,
Right.
random shit, but
I
it
was gonna
like
say.
leads into that expectation thing.
But are you laying it out when you first like if you're going on a
I'm
first?
a-
Is
you
that
want me to be honest?
something? I don't know.
I'm not laying out my expectation. It depends on what she is to me. I'm not trying
That's
to be
fair.
mean.
That's fair.
I guess
But-
you would have to have a conversation of
Yeah.
like intention first.
Like if I'm just
Right.
trying
You know
to,
what I mean?
But I would assume like if you're taking someone out to, well, that's debatable. But
Yeah.
I was gonna say
Because that's why I said intention.
That's what I'm saying. It
Because-
depends on the intention. Like if the intention is
depends.
to be something,
Right.
then all right, I'm gonna lay down. I really want to see where your head's at.
But as a man, you feel like that's too soon. Like if you're sitting with someone for the first time and you're taking them out to dinner and they're like, "Hey, this is what I've been through and this is what I want," is
Nah, I
that
fuck
too
with that.
forward,
Nah,
or
I
do
like
you
that.
feel like
I'd
that's
rather that.
That's perfect.
setting?
Yeah, I'd rather that.
Okay.
You
Because
have
then
to
if
do
she's
that.
like, I want a man, and I really don't want that. I'm just
Right,
gonna
you
tell her I
have
don't
to
want
do
that.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, because I feel like some men would think that's too forward. You know, like
Nah.
if you're going to do it, they're like,
Nah.
whoa, we just,
Yeah.
we just started talking.
I think a lot of times females are a little more in depth. So for us for me, I know it's very simple.
Mm-hmm.
If we communicate and you say like, since I know you fucking other people, we gotta wear condoms and like I'm cool with stuff like that.
That's fair.
So that's more
That's fair.
important
That's
to
so
me
egregious.
than.
That's fair. But it's
Oh, yeah,
Well,
it's
that's
true,
more
though,
important
but-
to
in
me than
this,
acting like
listen.
nah, I don't fuck with nobody right now. We
Yeah,
good,
right.
and it's
Right.
like
Risking your
versus-
health and shit.
hey, like
Right.
you're a part of the dating pool. So the
Right.
last nigga that took me on a date, I ended up doing XYZ. So now we
I
gotta
think females
definitely
just
make
overthink that shit.
Yeah, I actually
men
respect females
actually,
that
I was
like
gonna say,
that,
men
though.
really like that
I
straightforward,
love that
like
shit.
blunt
Be
shit.
straightforward. Tell me what you doing, how
Well,
you
we
doing
get to
it.
make the decision, and I
Yeah.
think sometimes it's
Yeah.
easier
Yeah.
on us to make the decision. We fumble a lot when we got to decide. Like, dang,
Yeah.
do we lead with the money? Do we lead like, listen, I got my fiance. We trying to take you on a date. Do I do this by myself? Do
Well,
I
that's
like?
also
It's so
the fill
many.
out process.
But if you
Yeah.
right, but
You
if
can
we
do that
know
in
from
text
the
sometimes,
start,
filling that out.
right? But if we know from the start, like, hey, this is why I'm at this table,
Right.
then it's like I
Right.
can figure out where to
Right.
put you, and I don't mean it like literally like that, but in the sense of the expectations, the
Right.
conversation, and things of that nature.
But I don't really think texting is a good temperature gauge.
It's not. I usually
Right.
text
You
into
know,
phone call, but I'm just saying
because,
this in the
yeah.
beginning thing. But
yeah.
so my thing too is also is our expectations beforehand, because you go into meet somebody and obviously it depends on how you go into it. Some
Mhm.
people go into it and say, I'm gonna give this person a chance. Don't matter. They go with me until they lie, until they do something.
Mm.
Right? Certain people are like that. Certain people have their guard all the way up there, like, oh my God, I don't know. So I think expectations sometimes before you even get into it can be
Right.
set. You expect this person not to lie, not to cheat, not to do that, because it's like an expectation in your head. No, I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
So I think that plays a role. I think with friends, when we're good friends to people, we're like not expect them to do that back, and we don't say it.
Mm.
We're like, like, oh, I'm here for Moo, so now I expect when I'm going through something, Moo to reach out to me,
Right.
and I'm not saying it. I'm just because I did, so now he should. Now he doesn't do it, and now I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Or anything, vice versa. I know girls that happens to a lot. Girls go through a lot of stuff where they fighting, bickering because they don't say nothing to their friend, and then they expect their friend to know, and now they ain't friends for 10 years.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what
and
I'm
they
saying?
go to
Guys are
Miami
fine.
and then they
Guys
come
are-
back.
Yeah, come
they
back,
not
no
friends.
friends no more.
Yeah, guys are different though. Guys are just dead ass fight. Next day shake
Yeah,
hands,
be
and be like, "What's up?
Gucci.
How we doing?" Like,
That's
girls
true.
are a
Nah,
little
that ass-
different.
Nah, I couldn't do
So-
that.
Yeah.
So let me ask
Fuck
you
that.
as a question: has there ever been a point where somebody made you guys feel like they had like unrealistic expectations set upon
Hell
you?
yeah.
Absolutely. I think that, especially with the whole mind reading, the mind reading point, that I don't remember who made that about
was me.
expecting to read something. Okay. I think men in particular struggle a lot with trying to, like I said, like identify what's going on with them. So I think women are in a position where they're like, what the fuck? Like, it's so
Yeah.
easy for me to be like, yeah, I'm not okay. I did not have a good day today. They come home from work and they share their story or their trauma. And I feel like for me, sharing trauma is therapeutic.
Right.
Like I can talk to a stranger and tell them what I went through. And for me, it helps me heal. But I think for men, it's the opposite. I think the more
Yeah.
they close themselves in, that's how they heal. So it's very different. And I think for women trying to like uncover that, it's a pain because you want to know, especially someone that you have a genuine interest with,
Mm.
you want to peel back the layers.
Have
But
you always
Break
been
down
like that?
those walls.
Always been, yes. Because, I went through, there's a lot of things that I've went through, and there were questions about, wow, like you're able to just expose yourself, like especially social media, Facebook. I'm like, why? Transparency is how you really get to know somebody.
Right.
Like, I want you to know, especially, so for example, the things that I've went through, when I shared it on a social media platform, so many women came out of the woodworks and they were like, yo, we went through the same thing. We just didn't talk about it.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, that's unfortunate because you'd see that you're not alone. And I think
Yeah.
with men, it's much harder to get to that point. It's so much harder. Like even Facebook groups, you have like the mom groups, you
Yeah.
have the pregnancy groups, you have the loss groups.
Yeah.
Where is that for men?
I think that's because
I'm not
niggas are
gonna front.
so used to flexing
we
on
do
each
got,
other.
like Black Dad.
Some, but that's about
She said,
it.
wait a minute.
Because it doesn't really exist. There
Right.
is really no platform for
Society.
men to share what's going on with them, and that's why they become very explosive. Like, it just builds and builds, and then it
But
just
that's
explodes.
what I was saying. When you said heal, I was like, I don't know if that's the correct word, because I don't
Mhm.
think that men that hold stuff in actually are healing.
That's
I
true.
think it's,
Yeah.
I think
That's
it's,
true.
I think
They
they're just
think-
suppressing it.
They
Yeah,
might think that
that-
that's healing
yeah.
to them.
That's what I'm saying,
but it's not.
Like,
Right,
I'm a
it's
person
not.
that was big into that, like big into.
Yeah.
I don't say nothing. I'm just gonna, whatever I'm dealing with, whether it's at home or
Mhm.
girl, I'm just gonna internalize everything. Internalize, and then either you explode or
Right.
you just get into like this low where you just feel like a
Yeah.
weight on your face,
Mhm.
pretty much, because you dragging it through the day instead of talking. And that's why I always say like pro therapy, because you could speak to somebody or have somebody that's a friend that you could talk to or do something that
Yeah.
way. Because like you said, venting sometimes can help.
Mhm.
And for me it did. But I know a lot of men, they hold it inside, and then they baby mom or somebody trip up, and
Mhm.
now they going to jail.
But
they
think
going to
about
jail 'cause they gonna knock them out.
think about the like how a lot of men raise their kids, right? Think
Mhm.
about how men raise little boys. It's like, you don't.
Tough
Why are
love.
you crying?
Why are you crying? Don't be
Yeah.
soft.
Toughen up, man up.
You're a boy.
And like for when you have a little girl, it's like, oh, like you coddle her and you
Yeah.
comfort her and you support her. With boys, from the beginning, you're expected to deal with shit yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
So when they transform into men, that translates throughout.
That's where the
everywhere.
communication
Right.
skills are
That
lost.
translates at work. How many times, like, I have seen in my own personal experience, women explain themselves more at work, right? Like,
Yeah.
even employment. When you have an issue with your boss, I find that women will vocalize what's going on more than men do. In my own
Mhm.
experience, I think that men they'll eat shit. Like, they
Yeah.
won't say what's going on, and I think, again, that translates throughout all platforms, even into their relationships. When they have something going wrong, it's like silence.
Right.
And you're just
Yeah.
expected to know, like, what's up with you? What's going on?
Right.
Women, you ask me, I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna be like, at 7:00 on November 12th,
Start narrating.
2000.
Break that whole shit
But
down.
see, I don't think. Yeah, that's why I think women are like just by nature, but a little more in depth
Yeah.
all the time, because I wouldn't
Mhm.
like. I also think it depends what you do for therapeutic activity.
Yeah,
Because
it's
I
true.
like to ride bicycles. Pause.
I was about to say.
And
what?
Stop, Pat.
and I like
Every
to.
episode is crazy. Every episode is crazy.
That man just stopped for no
What?
reason. He literally
You
knew.
be bugging
he felt
out.
it. Nah, he felt it. Pause.
Hey,
he felt it.
What? No, you see every episode. Yo, somebody get him his own show, his own episode.
He
He
said
got
he
something to
felt
tell
it.
y'all. Cause what is going on, Pat?
Nah, as soon as he said it, I looked at him. He said, "Yeah, pause." He knows.
Unbelievable, bro.
But I know for me, I like to internalize things sometimes because it's not important. Because I could just go for a 40-mile bike ride and
Wait, but who says it's not important?
I was gonna ask you that
to myself.
But what if it's important to somebody else?
Nah, I just mean like in the sense of
Listen, it's a
said, nah.
valid
It is,
question.
though.
I
If
understand what
I'm-
you're
No,
saying,
not
but
because of the way he said.
It's just
Right,
how you-
like,
trying to push that to the
if I'm
side.
romantically involved with you,
Yeah.
it might not be important to you, but your body language, I'm
Yeah.
gonna
Sure.
pick up on
Sure.
that. You're
Right,
gonna
right.
be in a funk all day. You're gonna have a screw face.
Not
and you're
gonna
be
deal with
like,
your attitude
right.
because
So,
you're upset and you can't
exactly.
just say
That's
it.
what I'm
Nah,
saying.
I'm not-
That's
I don't think that I react that way. But all I'm saying is because me and my fiance share a book that we write in together. You don't necessarily always have to live in reality of what you're feeling in the moment. So what I'm saying is we can be out and she
Mhm.
might do something that may fuck up the whole night. But I can internalize it, write it down in my phone, make sure I write it down in a book. Now we have two separate conversations, but we get to live positive in the moment. So that's all I'm saying. So I know it doesn't really
Yeah.
sound something
and a
like
place.
people
Yeah.
always do, but sometimes it's better to internalize it. You get to
Right.
feel
Well,
it
I wouldn't
longer.
necessarily say that.
Think
I think
about
it's
it.
also about how you express it.
like, do you
Right,
guys
right, that's what I'm
talk
saying.
about? Do you
You know
guys
what I mean?
talk about what's in the book? Like, do you ever like verbalize it, or you
We
just
have
keep
that
it?
option, but we
Okay.
feel like the things that we write in the book are very minor. And if it goes outside of the book, then it's a conversation. We don't like
Mm.
write more in depth, but it's just very minor. It's topics. It's have a good day, have a good week. Here's money for this. This is the topic of the week. Communicate. Like all of those kind of things happen within the book. So we could be arguing
Mm-hmm.
in real life, but planning a trip in the book. so it doesn't stop. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We could be arguing in
So
the
you
book
guys are always on
and
back on beat.
enjoying something
Yep.
in real life. So the balance is there.
Mhm.
So it's not like one thing took place and now the whole mood is messed up for XYZ.
Yeah.
So that's really all I mean. Mainly because I feel like females care about more than what we care about in relationship.
That's true.
So we don't necessarily bring up things that may be important to you because we understand how far it might go when it doesn't really mean much to us. And it could be something very simple as liking a picture. Like, we don't give a shit about that. But we're not going to initiate a conversation like that of you liking a picture because we know how far this shit is going to go and it doesn't really matter to us.
Yeah.
So it's something like that.
What about like outside of a relationship, like lovers aside? Like, how would you deal with your emotions then?
That's a
like,
good
you know
question.
Because
that's a good
men
question.
that's not the only stress that a man has in his life. Let's
in
not
fact,
pretend.
I think
that
might be lower on the pole
that's
than
the least
anything
of
else.
your worries.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie.
Right, that is. It's true.
Nah, I don't think so. I think I'm just speaking for myself, but my stuff is very new. Like I don't have a child or a house yet or anything. I just have a fiance. I don't want to make it seem like it's nothing, but I don't have anything that is that's like I can chill and relax. I'm still working, so it's a high priority in the moment.
Yeah.
So maybe I guess like somebody, if you're in a relationship for a long time, you feel like that, but not work. I've been doing my same job for 10 years.
Right.
So I'm not worried about things that this is very new. So this is a top priority to me. So maybe it's different for.
How long have you guys been doing the book? Like theory?
Since therapy, maybe only like 8 months.
Oh yeah. After 10 years, I'm taking a notebook and writing. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, literally.
After 10 years, no fucking give me
Every
a notebook.
page.
Give me the fucking notebook.
Fuck
Page,
yourself,
what?
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
gonna beat you with that damn
Right,
book.
Give me the
You
notebook.
be tight enough? All right.
Even if I go days without
you
it,
see
she'll
that book
say,
coming right in yet?
Turn to
she'll
page
make
6.
sure that I do it. Like, hey, I'm not gonna cook dinner because it's been this many days since you. And I'm like, oh shit, yeah, my bad.
Nah,
So-
I'm definitely gonna write in that shit.
No, it's some. It's just
That
important.
is nice though. That thing that like I
That
really applaud
really
you guys
is
for that.
so
Literally,
cute.
because you know,
Nah,
relationships
it's
aren't
hard,
always
but it's
easy.
something that's important because for me, I'm very verbal in the way that I articulate things is very black and white. So sometimes when you have or like when someone does something and they're like, I'm playing around, and to me, I'm like, I don't play around like that. But it occurs multiple times. It's really not important.
Right.
But it's something that I can say, like, listen, you did this and you said you wasn't going to do it no more. But instead of having that conversation, it might escalate X, Y, I can just write it down.
Have you always been that way?
Nah, I started writing when I was like 18. But I have like 17 notebooks that I've written, and I have poems and like published poems and all kinds of shit.
Really?
I was gonna say that kind of.
Yeah,
I was
write
gonna
it
bring that up too.
all the time. I can show you my
That is
notes.
such-
yeah, show
right
us something.
here.
That really is such a good way to like. It's so therapeutic to just.
Well, this is
write
my
it.
Samsung notes. I write all the
He got a
time.
fucking Android, y'all.
Wow.
Leave
But,
him alone.
Yeah, he got an Android.
I could show you my
Yes.
blogger too, real quick, just to stunt.
Really?
Yeah, this.
Does
from
it help? Does it
2000.
when you're finished, right? When you write your pieces, do you feel at the end? Do you feel accomplished? Like, do you feel like you got it off your chest and you're like, oh, like that sigh of relief?
Yeah, because it's probably the softest, vulnerable, like most, I guess like emotional time. So when I write, it's always a setting. It's always, maybe music, lights, candles. It's never in a rush. I might rush in here, but when I sit down and put it in a notebook, I'm very relaxed. I might smoke a blunt, light some candles.
Right.
Like it's always a vibe, but more importantly, I just want to be taken to a different place. I listen to a lot of jazz or like instrument music, not with words in it. So it's very important to me. But I have a blogger here where I've published poems since 2014. So it's almost 10 years now. And they have views. One of them I get like 40 cents a year off.
Really?
Yeah, because people view them.
That's
What's
that's
up?
awesome.
That's fire.
But I
And
don't
this
know
is-
if most men do that though. Is
No.
that like that's an anomaly?
I wouldn't
I
That's
was
say
gonna
most
something.
men
say
do
like
that.
he's like
No,
the rare and the
Not a
rarity
lot of
there.
men even know. Like,
Nah.
if you were to give them a pen and paper, they would be like, I don't know what to write.
I got in
'cause,
No,
like,
trouble.
Literally.
I'm good at that,
I
but I
s-
don't do what he does. I would say I'm good at articulating how I feel, but I do it right from the moment. You know what I'm saying? I do it right from the moment and shit. But that's like if I'm writing to my mom or I'm writing to somebody,
Yeah.
I could literally just freehand off mine, boom, 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 and it'll be something beautiful. But I can't do what he
Nah, I
do. Where
could
he writing
topic.
poems and all that, I can't do
I've
that.
sat down with I don't know if you guys are familiar with Maui, but she does like live poetry. I can show you pictures and stuff. But I used to
Not
do
me
things
having a 2-year-old thinking we're talking about Moana.
with
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
Nah, I
Maui.
can show you who she was.
I
But
just saw that shit on my way here.
she from
I'm dead.
I was
PA.
watching Moana.
I'm dead.
But yeah, I've been doing it, man.
But you do realize that's not the
That's
norm.
not common.
That's
Well,
not the
at
norm.
all.
That's something that you were conditioned to do just
Right.
naturally. But I feel like it doesn't come as organically for other men.
Yeah.
Well, I think people don't necessarily try it, right? I got kicked out of high school. I got arrested so young, and I never really spoke. People used to be like, "Dang, I just seen you walking down the hallway and you hit somebody," and then I never felt like I needed to explain why I hit them, but I knew why I hit him. So when I just went to therapy for the first times, my therapist, my Mr. Scott from Patchogue, Sayville, excuse me, therapist office, Sayville. I forgot the name of it, but he was just like, "Yo, I want you to write down every time you get angry. Write down every time, every fight, blah blah blah, fight until I see you next month." And then by the time I got to him, I probably had half a notebook just completed, because then I realized that I like writing about flowers and I like writing about colors, and then I just started just therapeutically writing. Then I found out what a haiku is. Then I realized I can make a poem and just use 4 to 6 lines, and it can mean so much. So, and it's good. Like I write things. I don't know off the top of my head, but I have like even something I wrote for my fiance the other day is just like melanin. When you step into the sun, your skin illuminates. Like that's just very simple.
I can't relate.
You know what I'm saying? Like
she better
But
cut the whole
it's
portion
just stuff
of this
like
podcast
that.
and send it and put it on the fucking
that.
link
If I'm
for-
inspired, I'll do it. So I don't
All
rush
right.
nothing.
So what would be your best? What do you feel like is one of the best pieces of advice that your therapist gave you for like people that are trying to be on the same page as you are as far as writing to kind of heal? What would you feel like you would tell people that are looking to be on that same journey?
Just to try everything.
Okay.
Hiking, all of those things that he told me to do, I do to this day.
And that
go
you
on
felt like
nature
that was
walks.
one of the most beneficial pieces of information he gave you?
Right. Everything I thought was corny. Like I never read a book. He gave me the first book to read, and I read like all of those things. I never just looked at the things that I thought. I guess like being a man is like how much you could wear on your shoulders, and people can see how much you could wear, and you can endure and still come out and be victorious on the other side. So I didn't know how comfortable it would be to wear flip flops with the thong in it until I did it. And then when I hit the block,
catch me with them shit.
everybody was like, "Yo, you wildin' for wearing those."
Don't show my feet.
No.
So, I think it's just about comfortability, but you have to try things in order to find your therapeutic. I don't want to say muse, but you got to find like your therapeutic niche, and it has to be something that you can have access to 9 times out of 10. It can't be something that like I need to fly to Vegas or something wild like that. But it has to be something that you could do like in the moment. I can always pull out my phone and write in my notes.
Yeah.
It could be anything. It could be like I have a poem in my phone called Yellow Lines, where I'm on a trip and we in traffic and I'm just looking at the yellow lines in the street. So I start writing a poem. Like it just whatever I'm inspired by is what I do. And I never like shortchange myself in the sense
so
of
beautiful.
whatever.
It is.
Yeah. So nothing is like to me when you imagine what you want your space to look like in that moment, nothing is like impossible, unattainable. Even if right now what you're going through is hell, if you meditate, you can sit and put things in place that will make you feel good, even if it's not your reality, but it's better than arguing, fighting, or whatever you go through. So I do think it's important just to naturally find something you can do, and then it's easier when you're in a relationship. So we have things that we do as well. We hug, write, whatever it is. But I do think that you need to find a therapeutic space in order for you to comfortably say, hey, when I write this down, this is real. When I think about this is really how I see you when you are in the sun, versus just making up stuff. So it's hard for me to make stuff up. If I get writer's block, I just close my book. So just do something.
Okay.
I'm better.
Don't be scared.
It sounds funny, but do y'all? I don't know if it's therapeutic, but do y'all talk to yourselves?
You have to.
Like
I feel like
I be
what I've
talking
started
myself
doing?
and like to myself. Literally, I'll be driving. Just
I feel like you have to.
Yeah, I was gonna
I feel
say.
like it's normal to want to have a conversation with yourself. Like sometimes you'll hype yourself up for something, or sometimes you'll prepare yourself. I think it's almost necessary.
I feel like that practices your communication skills, because as we get older,
Absolutely.
it's a lot of grown men and some grown women that have the communication skills lacking beneath a toddler. And like, I'm not gonna lie, this is something that really calms me down. Like, I work on this a lot. I do a lot of self introspective work. So like, my road rage and things like that. Like, if I'm really frustrated about something, saying this shit out loud, like, I'll sit there like a toddler. It sounds stupid, it sounds crazy, but I literally would do this in my car, home, alone. I'll sit there and be like, I'm sad because, and really like sit there and just keep going and just and just keep. You have to simplify it if you can't do if nothing else. Like,
can I share a story about that? So, a couple years ago, I was out with some family and friends, and one of my family members her boyfriend is basically raising her daughter, and he's been in her daughter's life probably since she was like maybe a couple of months old, and we were trick-or-treating, and he makes a comment where he's like, wow, it's so nice to be out with the family, and he goes, I wish I had a daughter of my own. And she heard it, and she didn't say anything. The little girl was crying, and we all noticed she was crying, and we were like, what's wrong? And she said, I'm sad because my dad just told me he wants a daughter, and I thought I was his daughter.
That's
and
tough.
It's such a big theory to a child. Like, me thinking about it as an adult.
How old is she?
She's now 7. She was about 5 at the time. He's been in her life
Isn't
since
it crazy
before.
that a 5-year-old can communicate better than most adults?
But that's my point. She was crying,
and we don't even do it.
And her mom was like, "What's the matter?" And she's like, and she called him daddy, and she's like, "Daddy said he wanted a daughter, but I thought I was his daughter."
Yeah.
And it's like, such a small person can convey why they're upset.
But that's also a big thing, is they also have no filter. Like,
right?
Yeah, but we also keep
Did
in
they end
mind.
up having another daughter?
No, not yet. She's the only child right now. Like, he wants a child, and this particular family member is like, no, I'm good with the one that I have. But I almost feel like you have one, so like share the experience. But I get it. Like you can't tell people on what their timing is.
Right.
But just to see that, like, and I'm talking about on Halloween, this girl's like, just full of it is, but he didn't. It was an innocent thing,
Yeah,
but
that was unconditional love to her. That's why.
But
that's
to her, she was like, "What do you mean you want a daughter? You're my dad."
Right. Yes,
so it's like she can say what she's able to say, why she's sad, why she's crying, and just so naturally.
Now she knows that comes with conditions, so she knows.
We spend so much time trying to instill these things in our children. Like, you have to communicate. You can't just throw a tantrum. You can't just do this. You can't do that, because you need to learn to communicate. And if we really self-reflect, do we have the same communication skills that of a 4-year-old or a 4th grader? Probably not.
That's true.
No, seriously.
I think
probably
that's
not.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Well,
you're going
most
to internalize
adults,
it. You're going to get upset. And it sounds childish to apply it to yourself. Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Kids do that. When you instill it enough in a child, kids are going to walk up to you. They have
no, I said they have no filter. Like, they'll go up to somebody. I've seen a kid
that's
go
what
to
she said.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But that's also because kids don't just wake up at 4 years old and is like, oh, I'm finna tell them why I'm sad. Because terrible too is your kid is not saying nothing. They're just throwing themselves on the floor. You teach them how to communicate properly. You have patience and you teach them.
Right.
Now, where we lack is having the patience to reteach ourselves to do that.
Exactly. Well, and you know what? That's also how we were raised.
Literally.
We were raised to not explain,
some
I think
you guys are missing the biggest part. I think, more importantly, we as adults, we understand feelings and empathy and sympathy.
Yeah.
So it's, even if it's, sometimes, like, even when I say things, people are like, oh, no, you wildin', but that's how I feel. Like, I just want you to know how I feel versus, like,
that's
last
the ability
time you
to
was
say it. It's not necessary. What we're getting at is your ability to communicate what you are feeling.
Right, but a lot of times people don't say it because they are conscious of how the other person may feel.
Right.
So you guys,
you're not gonna see somebody with fucking, I don't know, something something that. We're not gonna see somebody that's fat and say you fat as hell.
That's not the
but
same
a
thing.
kid might say that.
That's not. But
a kid really might say that. He might say you
picked
fat.
that?
But that's not the same thing. I think we all understand that the premise of what we're getting at here is completely different.
Nah, I'm just adding on to it. I'm not trying to compare.
It's just like a little bit of a reach.
I'm just saying the difference in how, like, the difference in generations and how, like, my focus right now with my daughter is teaching her, number one, what feelings are, and how, not only what her feelings are, how to tell what other people's feelings are. So, like, when she's watching a movie, she's like, what's going on? I'm like, you tell me. And she's like, oh, they're sad. And I'm like, why are they sad? And she'll explain it to me. And that's how you teach and condition children that eventually grow up to be members in our society, what empathy is and how you can relate not just to yourself, but to other people, because that's what's missing. Like, I see a lot of times people don't understand how to receive other people's feelings. They don't know how to receive it. You see someone's upset, like the whole expression, like, read the room.
Yeah, I was going to say.
That's true, because people don't know. Like, you can't tell when other people, even other people's discomfort. You don't know when other people are uncomfortable around you. And that's a big thing in certain cases with men and rejection. Even in that
case,
case,
tell when somebody uncomfortable around you.
some people
Some
cannot.
people can.
Some people
really can.
cannot.
I'm glad Pat cut you off right
Some
there.
I
people-
was gonna say, I mean, knowing if somebody, I don't really have that problem.
But it's true. I think you have to learn, even with little girls and little boys, to understand, like, because they're gonna grow into people, and it's just about learning how to gauge, right? Like you said, like temperature, understanding what other people are experiencing and how they're feeling, and facial expressions and all of that. I think that's what's important too. If they're not communicating it, it's like I can read between the lines.
Yeah, but I still think like it's different when you talk about that versus like communicating your feelings in regards to something happening to you. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, kids are blunt, but that's exactly what it is. It's a kid being blunt. You teach them social cues when to not be so blunt.
Right.
Like, okay, you're gonna hurt their feelings if you say that. It's a difference between just being like, all right, you don't have no social, like, you just socially awkward and you saying something wild, and actually learning how to communicate why something frustrates you or why you're getting upset in a moment,
or knowing how to handle your emotions.
Right. If you have a child, right? So like when he was little, he was putting blocks on top of each other. He would get frustrated, knock him down, throw him around, throw a tantrum. I'm sure at some point you taught him like, no, just keep trying.
Yeah, we're doing that. We're working on that now. We're teaching her. She says, I'm frustrated.
Yeah.
We're teaching how to identify what frustration
is. That's very important.
So if you can tell me what frustration is, now I know how to respond to that. Versus before you get to that point and you have a full-blown tantrum, you're telling me that you're frustrated. I get it. So now I can help you.
Which teaching them that in turn teaches them how to also receive it, because now they know if I see somebody else doing that, it's probably because of X, Y, and Z.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we are definitely I think this generation, like our generation, 30-year-old parents were like, the younger 30-year-old parents, as far as their kids being younger, not the 30-year-old parents that have teenagers. But I do think that we
no shade.
Y'all can take it how y'all want.
No, every episode they're gonna be ready to cancel us. So that's what it is.
I don't want to say we are bringing back some sort of like village attitude parenting, but I do agree with what you're saying. My son's mother did a lot of things like that earlier than I thought would be beneficial.
Right.
To the point where I was like, all right,
but they get it.
He's only 18
they
months.
Get
like,
it.
He doesn't need to do all of these exercises and shit like that.
They actually
and
do.
Then, it took me until he was about 2 to be like, oh yeah, okay, this workbook that I have, he's gonna trace. And so she would do all those things, and I used to be like, he's not even going to school until he's 5. Like, what the hell?
Yeah.
But now he knows how to write already. He's 4. He knows how to spell his whole name, count to 100. And, so all of those things that she started when he was 1, and I used to be like, you're just wasting time. It just clicked. By the time I started them at 2, he was already baby seasoned. But by the time he can speak at 3, it was easy. He'll tell you that he's annoyed. He doesn't want you to
I
do
bet
that.
you that he can articulate himself better than some full-grown adults.
For sure.
Yeah.
Because
at 3,
he doesn't care if he hurts your feelings unless I say, oh, like I act like, oh, you're hurting daddy's feelings. And he's like, you want to hug or something?
See, but that's empathy. That's teaching empathy.
He can understand it when he sees it. He's never gonna, kids wouldn't be able to understand what they're seeing if they're never taught what's actually going on.
Well, that's what it is. And if you have a kid that asks a lot of questions, like my son asks a lot of questions about different things, and I just explain it like pretty much like an adult. I explain it the best way, the best way possible. So, it was one time, it's silly, but kids just expect kids to be, their expectations for everybody to be friendly, everybody be nice. So we went to the park one time. It was like one of his first times going to the park. I'm like, not every kid's gonna be like you. I'm just letting you know ahead of time. Not everybody's gonna be like you. Some kid came by, he wanted to give him a hug. Kid ran right by him, stiff on him, right by him.
It was a white kid?
Yeah, went right by him, stiff on him.
Ooh,
right?
I can't see that as a parent.
So I said, didn't hit him like over, but just was like, nah, chill, I ain't trying to hug. So he looks at me and he's like, Dad. I'm like, what? He's like, he didn't want to hug. And I'm laughing because I'm like, you just innocent as hell. But I'm like, not everybody, so now he knows when he goes, he's like, he kind of reads the room. He's like, oh, this kid wants to play tag. This kid wants to, he's chilling. I'm not going, you know what I'm saying? So he already knows.
That's how I gotta be.
Yeah. And then like he just knows even when he could tell when somebody's down or somebody's out. Like it's been a couple times where I've been just not upset. I've been upset about something, and he just come over and be like, "Dad, it's all right," and just try to say some silly stuff. You know what I'm
But
saying?
isn't it interesting to see how the children that we're raising in this generation, how they'll be so much more emotionally aware? Like, because we're teaching them so little, right? To like identify feelings and understand feelings and see other people's feelings. I feel like the children now that like we're raising in this generation with the parents that we have and what we know, by the time they're our age, I almost feel like they're gonna have it together.
Yeah.
They're gonna have it together.
For sure.
And I think a lot of the issues that we have because people don't know how to relate to other people, I feel like I don't think it'll ever completely go away, but I think that it'll definitely get better because of what we're doing as parents to our children, and we're learning and unlearning and learning and unlearning from ourselves and how we were raised.
And you learn from your parents, and at the same time, I always say that like you can only do so much.
Yeah.
So like Moo's gonna do something. When Tay has kids, she's gonna do something. You're gonna do something. I'm gonna do something. We're gonna give them the guidebook of what you should and shouldn't do. But eventually, they're gonna go out and do. And the good part is that we taught them, so they're gonna take something. And I always make that joke like they're gonna take something. Like one thing my parents said: never do drugs, never touch drugs ever. Like because I always had that in the back of my head. I'm not touching no drugs. I know what it could do to you. If they ain't tell me, maybe I would have. You know what I'm saying? So
I don't know, man. My mom used to be like, "Yeah, don't do all these things." Right there doing them.
But that's what I'm saying.
Right,
but you go out there and you gotta learn. So I feel like we could do great as parents. I'm sure there's plenty of great parents out there that taught their kids and they just went astray.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And like, so it's not as a crapshoot, but I mean we could do the best, and the best that we do, obviously they have an advantage in that regard. But really when they meet people, they have to be able to gauge it. Even if they know how to gauge it, it takes one person that catches them at a vulnerable state, and now they're at a vulnerable state, and now their whole life went to shit, or their whole life went down this roller coaster that it shouldn't have. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know.
Yeah, I also think it'll be easier as well because we have a lot more resources and a lot of podcasts and a lot more YouTube and XYZ. And even though this might not sound important, I think it'll be easier when these kids look around because man, in 10 years every single kid will be mixed. So like my son is mixed. Your child is mixed. Your child is mixed. I have all of my nieces. No, some of my nieces and nephews are mixed.
Right.
White, black, Spanish, black. Like it's so many. So I think it's easier to for those children when they look around to identify with so many mixed kids in my son's class that have black and white parents that look very similar to him in skin. So I do think all of those things just make it easier to also be a little more, I guess, patient and receptive of the people around you versus like my parents. I don't want to say it's not possible, but if you have a mixed household, most likely one of your parents or hopefully are not racist and things of that nature. So you're probably taught to love both races, both sides. So I do think there is a benefit that will occur in the next 5 to 10 years.
I agree.
And absolutely. I think mixed children is a big part of it because of all the things that they need to learn from both, I don't want to say, I guess, just both heritage or culture.
Right.
How far they want to go back and see where they come from and all those things. So I do think that is making our job a lot easier as well because I'm a reactive parent. Like I let my son do a lot and I just say, see, I told you. Or I will, if he want to do so, like he likes fire. So if he wants to light something on fire, he just tells me. I don't care. Let's go light something on fire. But he never gets the opportunity. But I would rather him tell me.
Y'all kids.
No, I'm just saying.
Backyard,
I would rather
pyromaniacs.
Well, I'd rather him tell me than try to sneak in.
No, that's true.
Be in the bathroom or something trying to light something on fire.
Kids have impulses. They want to do things, and it's good that they share that. But that's to the point that we were originating with. I think that the newer generation, which I think is called Gen Alpha.
Is it?
Yes, it is. It goes back. Gen Z is the last generation. You know how we're like Gen X, Gen Z.
I thought you guys were the millennials. I thought I was Gen X.
We're millennials, right?
Yeah.
You're Gen Z.
I'm Gen
right
Z.
after Gen Z, our children are technically Gen Alphas. It starts back at A, right? So Gen Alphas, right? I think they're going to be so aware, sometimes maybe hyper aware, maybe a little bit too aware,
Yeah,
but
it could be a good blessing and a
because
curse.
we're in
Lot
the
of information.
we're in the woke culture now.
Yeah.
Right,
So
a lot of information.
so I
Yeah,
think, but when it
interesting.
comes to explaining things, I think they're going to do so much better than we have done and ever seen before. I
Right.
think kids are just overall, they're going to have a better grasp at it because of the parenting that we have
Mhm.
now.
Right.
And I also think it's important for them to see that too, right, in
Mhm.
the household. But we won't go there. But
I
yeah.
think
Yeah.
I think it absolutely will be
Word.
different because think about it. One day those people are going to be leaders. One day people from our generations are going to be leaders, and by that time,
Some of them
I think
are.
it'll be
Some of them
exactly.
are.
I mean, I feel as though by that point, when we're older and some
Yeah.
people from our age groups are in power, I think that things will be a little more empathetic to that degree because of how we're all breaking generational curses
It's true.
actively. It's trending all over TikTok.
Right.
People are so open about talking about their
Right.
traumas and podcasts, talking about all their traumas
Right.
and laying
And you
it
gotta
all
be
on the
careful
table.
where you get all the info from, though.
But we
That's all I
like
will say,
we
'cause-
we
Yeah.
messed up. When I say we messed up, I'm saying like social media. We were the generation that was in that transition, right, from like in-person interactions to social media. So we didn't master it yet. Like we're going through the mastering stage. Like I saw on TikTok that there's apparently this thing called like speed dating in person, where if you match with someone on like Tinder, Bumble, whatever
Mhm,
website
use
there
that
is,
app.
you can actually create like you set up a date to meet.
Nah, my son Pat
Wait,
got Tinder. I
wait,
heard
but
that.
wait, you
You
set
are
up.
so
It's a
wrong.
speed.
I knew he was
It's
gonna
It's a
say
speed
that.
date.
I had
You
it
set up a
before.
date with this
I
person. You set up a
said,
date
"Don't
and a
do that."
time to meet with them.
Mhm.
And if you see them and you don't like what you see, you leave.
That's crazy.
The
Right.
table?
You know, like there's a girl who went on a rant on TikTok and she was talking about how she had a date with a guy.
Like in a physical,
In
in person.
person.
Where was the date at?
It was like at a coffee spot. It was at a coffee spot. And she sees him, he sees her, and he kept walking and left and got in his car. And he was like, yeah, wasn't really a fan of what I saw. And that's a trend.
Wait,
That's-
he
That is
didn't
very
speak.
much
He
a
didn't.
thing.
No, he did not speak
introduce
to
her.
him.
her.
Nope.
What
He
the
just
fuck?
kept, and she texted him and she was like, what's your deal? And he was like, oh, I just wasn't like, that's called speed dating. That's the game. That's what it is. That's what we're doing. That's our, us.
I think that shit. Yeah.
But that's a thing, and it's.
But here's the
it's-
thing, right? Because all right, fuck those
That's
apps
mad
for a
creepy.
second. We go, and what I kind of want to hit on too with expectations. Sometimes we go on social media and like especially Instagram,
Right.
and we look at people's lives on Instagram before we meet them, and we have an expectation of how they're gonna be. Like sometimes we look at pretty women and we're like, damn, they bad. She look like she's gonna be like that.
That's what I was
And
getting
that's
to.
my
Yeah.
that's my expectation of her. Like she
Whatever
got,
she
you
was
know what I'm
expecting.
saying? Yeah, like she wearing Fendi, she wearing Gucci. She must just like the fine thing. She about to want this from me, want that from me.
Yeah.
And then you meet them and it's like, oh, they not like that, or vice versa. It
I
could
get
be
that all
somebody
the
that's just-
time. They'll be like, "Oh, I thought you were just an IG baddie." I'm like, "Yeah, don't let social media fool you. I
Yeah.
actually, it's a brain up here. I can articulate. I can speak.
What you
You
mean
know
by
what
the
I'm saying?
brain?
yeah.
Mood. It's almost like it's almost. You know what? I'm not gonna promote violence on this podcast.
No,
we,
no
will
Nah, we
talk,
don't
you
do
know
that.
What I'm saying?
No
We'll talk
violence.
after.
No
But that's neither
DVs.
here nor there. No.
No DVs.
Oh my God, this is crazy.
So how would you say, since y'all all been through things, how would you say your past expectations that didn't go right or went right? Like how does that transfer now to where y'all at now? Like because I know for me, my expectations have dialed down a little bit. I go through the motions a lot more rather than saying, all right, this is what I expect you to be.
Mhm.
This is why I have more patience. So how
Well-
does that affect y'all now?
Hey, real quick, do you put more of the expectation on yourself, or it's just
Yeah,
lesser?
I think it'll be hard. I think I'm truly harder on myself now. Like I'm more aware of like I gotta have certain things together. Where back then it was just like I'm winging it. Like you know what I'm saying? She beautiful. I want it. I'm winging it.
Right,
Now
I feel
it's
like
I gotta
I'm the
bring
same now.
something to the table. If I ain't
Yeah, I
bringing
feel
nothing
like-
to the table, whatever.
I feel like it's natural to have expectations, but now I feel like I put them on myself to
Yeah.
understand
Yeah.
that I have to be
Yeah.
patient. I have to do this. I have to XYZ and make it more about myself.
Mhm.
So I don't just kind of go for anything, but more importantly, almost have like internal morals that I stand for.
Right.
So even if it's something that nobody knows, but so you don't just go through the
Mhm.
motions and get dragged through XYZ for no reason.
Can I just say, I think that expectations can also be, this is going to sound super conspiracy theorist, but is almost like a social construct in a way. Like, I feel like what are expectations?
Yeah,
What's
what are the
what's an
norm
expectation? Right,
expectations?
like what's the
What's
norm
setting your
at this point?
standards?
Like there are some people who I get the question like, "Oh, are you married yet?" And it's like, "What if I never wanted to get married? What if I was happy in the situation that I'm in now and I'm good with that?" And there are people that are like that where they're like, "I don't need to get fucking married. Like I'm good in my situation. I'm happy with not dealing with having to deal with divorce." Like if two parties are consenting to that and they're like, "Yeah, we don't want it." Then what's the expectation there? Is it, oh, you're supposed to get married because you're a part of the society and that's what society is doing? Or is it just like an agreement that two people have and they share the understanding that, okay, an expectation is where we both plan to go in 5 years from now or what we both want in 10 years from now. So it's like, it is so subjective and it really depends on who you're talking to that I feel like having an expectation is almost like it varies person to person. And I think that you shouldn't always fit into this little like cookie cutter image of what someone else wants you to be. Especially with someone that's been in, a long relationship. You get that all the time.
Absolutely.
Like, oh, where's your ring? And I'm like,
it's like, I think that goes into, that's funny you say that because, like, I was going to say for myself, at least, on a
She
grander
taking
scale.
shots at me because I asked her before the show.
I'm not taking
with her
It's
ring.
It's getting personal in here.
She said,
no, I'm not.
Personal
No,
in here.
She sniped me with the
common-
suppressor.
She said, I ain't forget.
It's a common
Yeah.
question when people
It's
find
true,
out you're
though, it
dating a
is.
long time.
Especially as a woman, what? You're going to hear that forever. Why didn't you have kids? Why
I'm
aren't you
like, I was
married?
16.
Like,
If
Wait,
we got
so-
married after 2 years, I'd be 18 years old and married.
Right.
Like, I
What
don't even
is
know.
your level? Sorry to be off topic for a second, but what is your level of because for me, I expect you to grow within your relationship, blah blah blah.
Right.
But it's personal. But
Yep.
from the outside looking in,
Mhm.
the greatest accomplishment that we can see is
Yep.
marriage.
Right.
So no matter what society says or how people try to blah
Yep.
blah blah, it means a lot. Even if you go into business meetings and your wife makes this much and that much,
Right.
and then you have a great track record, you never cheated on, and now people maybe could be like, oh, this person is
Mhm.
not a bad person. We can give him X amount of dollars. So it may benefit you in the long run, but more
Yeah.
importantly, you're in a state, New York, after 13 years of being with somebody, you're considered married anyway. So you're at that mark. So now I understand, it doesn't really make sense.
So for
So
me,
you're considered, you and your
like a domestic partnership.
right. 'Cause-
So to me, what matters more than marriage is a happy marriage. And I say that because I would never want, I know a lot of women who coerce men to get married. Like, when are we going to get married? And I think I don't want to go about doing it that way because for me, I've seen relationships like that and it's to their demise. Like, yes, you're married, you have a ring, you have a house, you have kids, you have a family. But at the end of the day, you have nothing if you're not happy with that. And you have nothing if you're not happy with the person that you're with.
all right. Besides happy though, what's the next thing that is above, and it could sound like a silly question, but what's the next thing that's above, like, it's good because it's been going great for the last 13 years? How do we elevate that? Even if it's not within a title, but how do we elevate that?
I think so we've been through a lot of milestones. And I think
Okay.
that's something to consider. Like, our relationship was never like this, just like like a plateau. There were always things that were brought into the relationship that brought us to a better place.
Okay.
And I think now we're finally at a part where it's like such a good place that there are things I'm learning now. Like, people are like, you've been with someone for so long. I learn something about this man every day,
Right.
like that, because we grew and matured together. It's not like I'm not in my 30s meeting someone in their 30s and like, you've established a life. Like, I literally went through childhood with this
Taking
person.
another shot.
Right.
I'm not taking another shot.
Nah.
Unless you want.
She's taking another shot.
I'm not.
We'll see.
I'm just saying my own truth is I feel like we've been through so much going through the milestones. Like, now we're learning how to, a lot of, like, when people have kids, a lot of times it makes or breaks you. Like, you have a kid with someone and you have to, now you got to co-parent. That's a whole different skill. And that's
Right.
not a skill that you're born with necessarily. Like, there's an instinct, but you have to learn how to deal with someone that might shoot down what you want to do. And now it's no longer my own like self-governance. I control what I want.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have this person that we created that
Right.
I could say, okay, I want them to wear red. You're like, I want them to wear blue. You can't compromise on that. One of you has to give in.
Somebody
So-
gotta take an L.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Like, that's what we're currently learning right now is like the whole family dynamic. And I think
Okay.
that because we're prospering in that sector, I think marriage is down the road. But do I think it's my highest priority when I'm focused on trying to learn what a family is like for this person and me when we never dealt with that before?
Right.
That's what I'm dealing with.
So
Yeah.
do you? Sorry.
No, you good.
Do you live that way? So I know for as being a fiance and doing things like
Mhm.
buying a house together, but now you have to open up finances and things together.
Mhm.
So while she was my girlfriend,
Mhm.
she never seen my bank account. I just paid for stuff.
Right.
I never seen her bank account until now.
Mhm.
So do you guys share? Do you guys?
Oh yeah, no, everything is pretty like open. I would have to say everything is very open, especially financially. There's a lot of you have to be. When you have kids with someone, you have to be. You not necessarily have to see inside your pocket,
Right.
but I need to know what you got going on, because at the end of the day, if something, knock on wood, happens to one of the parents, I got to know you're good.
That's true.
And I
Right.
got to know that you're going to be okay. Like, a lot of people gave me slack because they're like, oh, you let him do this and you let him do that by himself. Hell yeah, I'm going to let him do it by himself. You know why? Because if I'm
We need
working,
one parent to
Yeah.
survive. Take
if
care of the kids.
if I'm working late hours, if I'm doing something, if I'm away, if I'm whatever, I need to know you can hold it down.
Right.
Right.
So that's what
That's what's
I'm
up.
saying is mastering that craft, because parenting is a craft.
All right,
Right.
last question. Do you look at marriage as like a celebration? Do you look at it as a goal, excuse me? Or do you look at it as like an activity, job, duty?
I think it's everything. I think
You think it's
Marriage-
all three of them shits?
I think it encompasses in some way or another everything. I think that if you don't view it in multiple ways, I think that the image of, because some people say like, oh, marriage is just a piece of paper. To you, it's a piece of paper. Like, when people ask me like, oh, it's just a piece of paper. At the end of the day, no, it's not, because that's a commitment. You're talking about, like you said, like you're now consolidating funds with one another. You're like, oh, I know what you got. I know what I got. You have a lot more at stake when you're
Right.
married. So
Yeah.
it's like when you make that, the proposal is exactly what it is. You're proposing to someone to commit. It's a contract, but it's not just a contract. It's like we're agreeing to do this together.
Right.
So that's why I'm saying I'm not necessarily in a rush, but I'm securing to make sure like you're doing this for the right reason.
Right, you're living it without a title. That's fire.
Yeah. Like I don't need to give in to someone saying like, how come you've been, listen, I know people that were together for 20 years. Ask me if they're happy.
I can't really speak much. I think my longest relationship is like 4,
Yeah, don't speak.
3.
Lower the mic.
So I can't really, but I'm gonna give a little bit of advice. Like what you're doing is smart. I think getting in. I'm not trying to even say it like that because y'all happy. So, but people that aren't happy, I'm saying like y'all happy. So, but people that aren't happy, like getting into relationships and getting
What's
married.
nigga about to say?
Nah,
bro?
about to say some
it's
nonsense.
crazy. Nah,
I
what
said
I'm
Say
saying,
nonsense.
what I'm saying.
Cut his
is,
mic.
like-
Cut his mic.
Word. I'm saying I see a lot of people like you get into marriages and get married and they're not happy and then they get divorced and the divorce rate is what, like 2.5 years, 3 years or something like that, or something crazy. But I think a lot of people just look at that as like the gold
Mhm.
standard, like he said. It's the gold standard. I got married. I did this cool Instagram shit. We did it.
It's
we
like a
did it,
badge.
We did it.
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
But if you're not happy, like
bragging
I'm not gonna lie,
rights.
I've seen
That's
so
what
many
it
people
is.
walk into a place married and I know they not happy. Or I know homie just
Yeah.
done smoked 3 girls. Like I've known that, and then I've seen. I'm just saying.
But he's
And
not
then-
wrong.
Nah,
He's
I'm just
not
saying.
wrong.
But then I've seen
No,
people
he
that
done smoked
ain't.
3 girls.
Yeah, but then I've seen people that are literally not married.
Chilling.
And they chilling and they mad
Chilling.
confident.
And
like,
they're
happy
the confidence
as
level
hell.
and it's fire. I'm like, I need that. So
Yeah, and they're happy
yeah.
as hell because there's
I'm
no.
only marrying.
You know what it is? I think a lot of people,
No
and this
pressure.
goes back to expectations. Yeah, exactly. I feel like once the marriage is there, now there's all these expectations.
Nah,
I
fuck
think people
that.
have to learn more.
It's that pressure,
Or
baby.
at least you think it feels as though there's a lot of expectations, and you start placing uncommunicated expectations on each other. I think that's plays a huge role in that. And I think in general, like on the grand scheme of things, that we have to learn to live like not necessarily without any expectations, because with certain things you're gonna have a certain expectation. But
Right.
I think we need to learn to worry about the outcome less,
Right.
and because realistically, and this isn't to say this is gonna be the case every single time, but realistically, if you're doing, if you're living by your morals and by your values, whatever, and you're living in a light, kind, loving manner, that you're bound to get certain blessings regardless because you're putting in the work. It's just inevitable.
That's
You know
true,
what I
right.
mean?
Right.
So I feel like a lot of our problems is that we think about expectations too much. And again, I'm not saying it's easier said than done, but at least for myself, I've learned to be okay with whatever outcome, because whatever the outcome is of whatever scenario, whether relationships, life, at work, anything, modeling, is that whatever outcome happened, it probably happened because of something I did, and if it didn't, it's probably something that needed to happen for whatever reason. And that it's okay, and that
Talk
I'm
your
going
shit.
to be okay regardless,
Mm.
because that doesn't necessarily define how you are as a person.
Tay
Yeah.
is single. If you need her number,
I am not. Don't
hit
tell
her in the
people
DMs.
that.
Tay Marie,
Don't
I
do that
believe
because
that's
I
what
ain't
it
gonna
is.
answer it even if I was.
The
But
beauty
before
of
we get
life.
out of here, everybody enjoy life. Have fun. Don't set expectations too high on anything you do. Just work hard and enjoy life. We ain't here forever. So,
Communicate.
Stephanie,
Get money.
thank you for being here. Yes.
Appreciate you and your
Thank
time.
you, Stephanie.
Thank you.
I appreciate
Yes.
it.
Felt
Thank you.
it gave very much interview, but that's okay.
That's
It's
all right.
okay.
That's all right.
Sorry,
You
that's
did
what we
your
wanted
shit.
from
you. We
Right
wanted-
back.
You did your thing.
Shout out
so
to
why
that
you
hear
that
mad at it?
knowledge.
Yeah.
Like I said, an open book. I don't. It's fine.
Yeah.
Experience is
Transparency.
important to hear, especially as an adult. And
Right.
at 32, you don't hear people say, I've been in a relationship for
Yeah.
more than
As
10
a young
years.
woman, I admire
that's
that,
fine.
like, especially the way you articulate and things like that. How open you are, just
Yeah.
it's very refreshing.
And I
Thank
don't
you.
care what Moose say. Don't you ever wear the thong sandals, fellas.
First of all,
Put them slides on with the socks.
first
Crocs
of all,
got the best.
It's a lot
That's
of
it.
things Pat shouldn't do. No,
Pat got
Get
the
them-
hoochie daddy shorts to wear.
and we'll talk about it
With
on
skinny
another
ass
episode.
legs.
But
But with that
he
being
likes to make
said,
music.
it's Culture Shot. We out of here. Later.
Wait, Pat, you be wearing your Savage Love shorts to work?
Yeah.
Okay.